And welcome again to the Study Bible Study, where we study the Bible with study Bibles. And Revelation 17:14 tells us, "And these shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall conquer them, for he is Lord of lords, he is King of kings, and they who are with him are called and chosen and faithful." God bless and amen. Now, our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Amen. Okay, this is our communism study on the Communist Manifesto, so let's just hop into it. Okay, now and then workers are victorious, but only for a time. The real fruit of their battle lies not in the immediate result, but in the ever-expanding union of workers. Now this union is helped on by improved means of communication that are created by a modern industry, and that a place that the workers of different localities in contrast with one another. It was just this contact that was needed to centralize the numerous local struggles, all of the same characters, into one national struggle between classes, but every class struggle is a political struggle, and the union to attain which the burghers of the Middle Ages with their miserable highways required centuries of modern proletarians, thanks to railways achieved in a few years. Now this organization of the proletarians into a class and consequently into a political party is continually being upset again by the competition between the workers themselves, but it ever rises up again stronger, firmer, mightier. It compels legislative recognition of particular interests of the workers by taking advantage of the divisions among the bourgeoisie itself. Thus the 10 hours bill in England was carried. Now altogether, collisions between the classes of the old society further in many ways the course of development of the proletariat. Now the bourgeoisie finds itself involved in a constant battle, at first with the aristocracy, later on with those portions of the bourgeoisie itself whose interests have become antagonistic to the progress of industry, at all times with the bourgeoisie of foreign countries. In all these battles, it sees itself compelled to appeal to the proletariat. Now to ask for its help and thus to drag into the political arena. The bourgeoisie itself therefore supplies the proletariat with its own instruments of political and general education. In other words, it furnishes the proletariat with weapons for fighting the bourgeoisie. Now further, as we have already seen, entire sections of the ruling class are, by the advance of industry, precipitated into the proletariat, or at least threatened in their conditions of existence. These also supply the proletariat with the fresh elements of enlightenment and progress. Now finally, in times when the class struggles near the decisive hour, the process of dissolution going on within the ruling class, in fact within the whole range of society. Now this assumes such a violent, glaring character that a small section of the ruling class cuts itself adrift and joins the revolutionary class that holds the future in its hands. Just as, therefore, at an earlier period, a section of the nobility went over to the bourgeoisie, now a portion of the bourgeoisie goes over to the proletariat. And in particular, a portion of the bourgeoisie ideologists who have raised themselves to the level of comprehending theoretically the historical movement as a whole. Now, of all the classes that stand face to face with the bourgeoisie, the proletariat alone is a really revolutionary class. If you can't beat them, join them, I suppose. Now, the other classes decay and finally disappear in the face of modern industry. The proletariat, get on board or it'll run you over. Now, the proletariat, its special and essential product, the lower middle class, the small manufacturer, the shopkeeper, the artisan, the peasant, and all these fight against the bourgeoisie to save from extinction their existence as fractions of the middle class. Now, they are therefore not revolutionary but conservative. Nay, more, they are reactionary, for they try to roll back the wheel of history. If by chance they are revolutionary, they are so only in view of their impending transfer into the proletariat. Now they thus defend not their present but their future interest. They desert their own standpoint to place themselves at that of the proletariat, the dangerous class, the social scum, the passively rotting mass thrown off by the lowest layers of old society may here and there be swept into a movement by proletarian revolution. Its conditions of life, however, prepare it for far more, for the part of a bribed tool of reactionary intrigue. Now, in the conditions of the proletariat, those of old society at large are already virtually swamped. The proletarian is without property. His relation to his wife and his children has no longer anything in common with the bourgeoisie family relations. Modern industrial labor, modern subjection to capital, the same in England as in France, in America as in Germany, has stripped him of every trace of national character. Law, morality, religion are to him so many bourgeoisie. Prejudice are so many bourgeois prejudices behind which lurk in the ambush just as many bourgeois interests. And all the preceding classes that got the upper hand sought to fortify their already acquired status by subjecting society at large to their conditions of appropriation. Now, the proletarians cannot become masters of the productive forces of society except by abolishing their own previous mode of appropriation, and thereby also every other previous mode of appropriation. They have nothing of their own to secure and to fortify. Their mission is to destroy all previous securities for and all insurances of individual property. So no more owning individual property, if you believe we own it, I guess, right? What's the old saying? If you want to know who owns your house, stop paying the mortgage. If you want to know who owns your house, don't pay your property taxes. You'll find out very fast who owns your stuff. It's definitely not you. Or us, I should say, because I'm in the same boat, but all previous historical movements were movements of minorities or in the interests of minorities. These proletarian movements is the self-conscious independent movement of the immense majority in the interests of the immense majority. Now, the proletariat, the lowest stratum of our present society, cannot stir, cannot raise itself up without a whole superincumbent strata of official society being sprung into the air. Though not in substance, yet in form, the struggle of the proletariat with the bourgeoisie is at first a national struggle. The proletariat of each country must, of course, first of all, settle matters with its own bourgeoisie. Now, in depicting the most general phases of development of the the proletariat, we trace the more or less veiled civil war raging within the existing society up to the point where the war breaks out into open revolution, and where the violent overthrow of the bourgeoisie lays the foundation for the sway of the proletariat. Now, hitherto, every form of society has been based, as we have already seen, on the antagonism of oppressing and oppressed classes. But in order to oppress a class, certain conditions must be assured to it under which can at least continue its slavish existence. The serf, in the period of serfdom, raised himself to a membership in the commune, just as the petty bourgeoisie, under the yoke of feudal absolutism, managed to develop into a bourgeoise. Now, the modern laborer, on the contrary, instead of rising up with the progress of industry, sinks deeper and deeper below the conditions of existence of his own class. He becomes a pauper, and pauperism develops more rapidly than population and wealth. And here it becomes evident that the bourgeoisie is unfit any longer to be the ruling class in society and impose its conditions of existence upon society as an overriding law. It is unfit to rule because it is incompetent to assure the existence to its slave within his slavery, because it cannot help letting him sink into such a state that it has to feed him instead being fed by him. Now, society can no longer live under this bourgeoisie. In other words, its existence is no longer compatible with society. The essential condition for the existence and the sway of the bourgeoisie class is the formation and augmentation of capital. The condition for capital is wage labor. Wage labor rests exclusively on competition between laborers, the advance of industry, whose involuntary promoter is the bourgeoisie, and it replaces the isolation of the laborers due to competition by their revolutionary combination due to association. Now, development of modern industry, therefore, cuts from under its feet the very foundation on which the bourgeoisie produces and appropriates products. What the bourgeoisie therefore produces above all is its own gravediggers. Its fall and victory of the proletariat are equally inevitable. And this is our communist manifesto read on the Study Bible study, where we study the Bible with study Bibles. And Revelation 17:14 tells us, "And these shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall conquer them. For he is Lord of lords, he is King of kings, and they who are with him are called and chosen and faithful." God bless and amen.